I can easily recognize President Bush and President Obama. I see them on television. What I know of past presidents I see from news clips. How much do we know of past presidents in the past 50 years that doesn't come from news clips? This documentary outlines what I know of my presidents from television viewpoint from the YouTube generation. Prior to the television, presidencies were defined by legislation, wars, key speeches, and key events. Abraham Lincoln's presidency is defined by the Civil War and his assassination. Teddy Roosevelt's presidency is defined by the antitrust legislation, Rough Riders, and the Panama Canal. Woodrow Wilson's presidency is defined by World War I and the League of Nations. What I know of these presidents from this in a textbook. Franklin Roosevelt was the first president to use media. He started the fireside chats on the radio
to talk with the comparatively few who understand the mechanics of banking, but more particularly with the overwhelming majority of you who use banks for the making of deposits and the drawing of checks.
FDR did not make use of the television, but several key speeches were captured by movie reel. Dwight Eisenhower was the first president to make use of the television. In the 50s, television was limited in households and limited the hours converted. What we see of President Eisenhower comes from formal television addresses. John F. Kennedy was the 35th President of the United States. His presidency was a change-up that made television important to how we view presidents. The debate between JFK and Nixon was the first presidential debate televised. Nixon sweated and looked nervous. Kennedy looked presidential.
I've been there now for 14 years, the same period of time that he has, so that our experience in government is comparable. Secondly, I think the question is, what are the programs that we advocate? What is the party record that we lead? I come out of the Democratic Party, which in this century has produced Woodrow Wilson and Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman, and which supported and sustained these programs which I've discussed tonight.
Watching Walter Cronkite interview President Kennedy. Watching the Cuban Missile Crisis. Watching the Beatles land in the U.S. Watching President Kennedy be shot in Dallas. Lyndon B. Johnson was the 36th President of the United States. His presidency began on Air Force One hours after President John F. Kennedy was shot in Dallas. His 6 years in office led to legislation called the Great Society, including laws that upheld civil rights, environmental protection, nationalized education, Medicare, and Medicaid. This legislation is the fundamental components of the current liberal philosophy. Many of the same items conservatives believe are stimulus of today's big government and financial disarray. With the broad legislative impact of LBJ, his presidency is better known to the public for its beginning on November 22nd in Dallas. for the escalation of U.S. involvement in Vietnam. For the social revolution in the 60s. For the anti-war and hippie movements. And the growth of drug use in the American youth. Richard Nixon was the 37th President of the United States. Images from U.S. troops leaving Vietnam. Nixon landing in China. Should define his presidency. But images of Nixon resigning from office defines his presidency.
In the past few days, however, it has become evident to me that I no longer have a strong enough political base in the Congress to justify continuing that effort.
Jimmy Carter was the 39th President of the United States. His presidency is known to the public for inflation and gas shortages. For allowing Iranians to take the U.S. Embassy and holding 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. Jimmy Carter is better known for his association with Habitat for Humanity after leaving office. Ronald Reagan was the 40th President of the United States. His presidency is known to the public for the return of the hostages from Iran, fall of the Berlin Wall, and the fall of the Soviet Union.